Hey guys, tonight we're stepping quietly into the fog-drenched streets of Victorian London. You can almost hear the clack of carriage wheels over cobblestone. Feel the scratch of soot in your nose and see the gas lamps flickering like sleepy fireflies. It's late far too late. You should be asleep, but you're not. Neither are they. You slip into a creaky boarding house, brush past lace curtains stiff with dust, and head upstairs. All around you, the city is buzzing with unslept minds aristocrats, staring wide-eyed at cracked ceilings, chimney sweeps to wired to rest, and bookish types drinking warm lettuce water because, well, they think it works. Victorian England has a sleep problem, and no, it's not just the bedbugs or the 3 a.m. horse manure smell from the streets outside. It's something deeper, maybe cultural, maybe just caffeine and stress. Sound familiar? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're here, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. I always love seeing how many of us are collectively not sleeping at once. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge slowly through the hallway of an upper middle class Victorian home. The wallpaper has gone yellow at the edges, and the smell of boiled potatoes lingers. It's just past midnight, and you like half the city can't sleep. In this era, insomnia isn't just an inconvenience. It's a condition, a flaw, a sign that your body, or worse, your moral compass, has slipped. People whisper about nervous disorders, hysteria, and overwork. There are pamphlets written in sharp black ink warning against too much mental exertion or the dangers of spicy food before bed. And then there's your neighbor, Mrs. Aldrich, who's convinced her soul is being rattled awake by demons that live in the wallpaper. You'd laugh if she didn't look so tired. Back in your room, you light a candle and sit on the edge of a rather unforgiving bed. The mattress is stuffed with horsehair and straw. It smells faintly of someone else's anxiety. You shift your weight, and the entire frame lets out a squeal of protest. Victorians believed in stiff mattresses, something about aligning the spine and resisting temptation. Comfort was for the weak. Outside, a dog barks, a carriage clatters by. Somewhere down the street, a street lamp fizzles and dies. You glance at the grandfather clock in the corner. Its pendulum swings back and forth like a judgmental eyebrow. Tick, tock, still awake. Insomnia was surprisingly common in the 19th century, partly due to the rise of industrial schedules, early trains, long work hours, artificial lighting. Historians still debate whether the invention of the gas lamp improved public life or just made everyone wired to rest. There are letters from factory workers begging doctors for help sleeping, and the doctors, they had opinions. Plenty of them, most involving warm baths, quiet walks, or a nice glass of milk laced with opium. You know, classic bedtime stuff. One popular belief that a strong moral character produced healthy sleep. If you were tossing and turning at night, perhaps you had been vain or dishonest, or perhaps you read too much French literature. The wealthy had more elaborate strategies. Some insisted on silk eye masks, lavender stuffed pillows, or personal servants whose only job was to refill the hot water bottle at 2 a.m. Others hired doctors to monitor their sleep, with stopwatches and notebooks long before sleep science was even a thing. The working class, less lucky, you'd find 10 people crammed into a single damp room, coughing into the dark. Their only lullaby the squeak of mice in the walls. Still, some rituals cut across class lines. You remember to hang your socks near the hearth, not for drying, but because someone told you warm feet mean restful dreams. It's not scientifically proven, but hey, Neither is boiled lettuce water, and you've got a whole pitcher of that waiting on the table. You sip it. It tastes green, like disappointment and a vague hope. There's a theory that lettuce contains a mild sedative. It goes back to ancient Rome and somehow stuck around. Victorians swore by it, especially the paler, floppier leaves. They'd steep them like tea, strain the liquid, and sip it warm. Supposedly, it soothed the nerves. Historians still argue whether the effect was chemical or just the power of suggestion. Either way, you keep sipping. You blow out the candle, lie down again, and pull the quilt up to your chin. It smells faintly of mothballs and something old or possibly regret. The bed creaks. The clock ticks. You stare into the dark and wonder whether the lettuce is kicking in or whether you're just marinating in leafy despair. Either way, you're not alone. Somewhere across town, Charles Dickens is probably also awake, pacing in his socks and muttering lines of dialogue to himself. He's got a sleep disorder too, or so his letters suggest. Something about a racing mind and too many characters trying to speak at once. You shift your head on the pillow, wishing your mind would stop MONOLOGWing outside. The city hums its eternal lullaby of half rest and half noise. You listen to it until the candle's last warmth leaves the room. You wake, or perhaps you never truly slept. The line between being asleep and simply lying there for hours has blurred. You sit up slowly, joints cracking, and look toward the small bedside table where your latest experiment in Victorian sleep science awaits. A teacup of boiled lettuce water, now cold and vaguely slimy. You sip anyway. Victorians had a peculiar faith in vegetables, while modern medicine leans toward melatonin and serotonin. The Victorians trusted plants. Lettuce, in particular, was their go-to sedative. Doctors of the time, swathed in beards and cloaks of misplaced confidence, claimed that lettuce, especially the milky juice found in its stem, had calming properties. They called it laxicarium and wrote about it as though it were a cousin of opium. In fairness, it does sound dreamy, doesn't it? A leafy narcotic gently whispering you to sleep. You finish the cup, still not convinced this wasn't a prank by a sleep-deprived gardener. But your feet are warm and the room is still. So you lie back again. Of course, warm feet are half the battle, at least according to every housewife's manual. From the 1800s, sleep begins in the toes. One popular pamphlet insisted. To prepare, Victorians turned to bed socks, wool wraps, foot breaks, and even small pans filled with hot coals tucked carefully beneath the bed. You imagine the smell of slightly burning flannel. Cozy. Historians still argue whether this obsession with warm feet was rooted in science or simply tradition. Some say it was about blood circulation. Others think it was symbolic, a way to feel grounded before sleep. You swing your legs over the side of the bed and step onto the warm rug, toes curling at the cold. It's late, but you decide to prepare your own foot warmer. There's a small copper pot near the hearth, already filled with the last embers of the evening's fire. You lift it carefully with cloth-wrapped hands and slide it beneath the edge of the mattress. The bed groans. Again, Victorian beds, for all their elegance, were not known for comfort. If you were upper class, you might enjoy a frame carved from mahogany, piled with layers of linen and quilts. But beneath it all, you still find a mattress stuffed with straw, wool, or horsehair, and sometimes a combination of all three, like a particularly prickly sandwich. For the less fortunate, a bed might be a wooden box with a thin layer of rags or a shared straw pallet. You try not to imagine how many people used it before you, till late. Still, there's a kind of charm to the way the Victorians approached sleep. It was a process, a performance. You didn't just lie down, you Prepared to sleep, you changed into your nightshirt long, white, vaguely ghost-like and donned a sleeping cap to keep the heat in. You lit a candle. You read a passage from the Bible, or possibly Mrs. Beaton's Book of Household Management. Then you drank your lettuce water, warmed your feet, and prayed your dreams wouldn't involve rats or unpaid debts. That thinking about snowflakes could lull the mind. The idea was that snow, being quiet and orderly, would calm the brain. You try it. You picture a flurry of snowflakes dancing above your head, settling gently on your pillow, melting softly. Against your cheek dye it's almost working, until a noise from outside breaks the spell. Horses, loud, clopping hooves, probably some gentleman returning late from his club, swaying with port and poetry, or a milkman who got an early start toward a very late end. You wonder how many of your neighbors are also staring at their ceilings. Probably a lot. According to some Victorian surveys, highly questionable in their methods, but charming in their conclusions. Insomnia was rampant among urban households. The combination of noise, gaslighting, overwork, and plain anxiety kept people in a state of nightly unrest. And yet, sleep was also a status symbol. To sleep well implied discipline, order, and moral uprightness. One writer in 1874 even claimed that those of weak resolve cost more than others. That's the Victorian version of being told to calm down and drink chamomile tea, but with more shame attached. Still lying there, you reach for another oddity, a sachet of dried lavender petals. The scent is faint but floral, and it makes you feel like someone, somewhere, put in the effort to make your room less depressing. Aromatherapy was big back then, though they didn't call it that. Lavender for calm, camphor for breathing, oranges studded with cloves to keep bad spirits and worse smells at bay. The lettuce hasn't helped much, but your feet are toasty. Your pillow, though lumpy, is cool on one side. You flip it, just for the illusion of control. Historians still debate whether the Victorians were actually sleeping less, or if they simply worried more about sleep. Maybe the industrial world made them obsessed with productivity even in rest. Maybe they were just inventing sleep anxiety before we had a name for it. You roll onto your side and let your eyelids sink halfway closed. There's no rush. If the Victorians knew one thing, it's that eventually sleep catches up with everyone. Even those sipping lettuce broth and toasting their toes beside a coal pan. The candle flickers lower. Your breath slows. You almost begin to dream. The room creaks as the night stretches on. Old wood shifting softly beneath invisible weight. You stay still. Wrapped burrito-like in a blanket. That smells faintly of soap and decades. Your feet are warm almost. They're warm now, and the lettuce has done what lettuce always does. Very little. The fire has dimmed to an ember glow. Shadows flicker along the cracked ceiling like half-hearted ghosts. Still no sleep. You sigh and stare at the foot of the bed, where your nightstand holds another tool from the Victorian sleep kit. A battered pamphlet titled The Correct Posture for Healthful Repose. The Victorians, it seems, were deeply invested in how people arrange themselves at bedtime, to flat and you drown in your own fluids, to upright and you wake with a neck stiffer than a broom handle. So tonight, you sit upright, supported by a mount of precisely folded pillows, arranged not for comfort, but for circulation. A small wooden bolster rests behind your back, and your neck leans against something resembling a large wooden banana. It's called a headrest. You wonder if it was designed by someone who never once tried to sleep. You try adjusting. No better. You rotate the bolster. Still terrible. Victorian advice on sleep posture was a mix of tradition and theory. Some health experts believed lying completely flat compressed the lungs and could lead to pulmonary collapses, Others feared it allowed sinful dreams to take root more easily. Either way, sleeping propped up was quite the norm, especially for women in tight corsets who never really got to exhale fully, even in bed. Historians still argue whether this upright sleeping was a response to real medical beliefs or merely another expression of Victorian restraint. Either way, it's deeply uncomfortable. You shift again and reach for your water. There's a soft rustle at the window. Not a ghost probably. Maybe just the wind brushing the dying vine. You decide not to look. You sip and consider another sleep aid. Breathing exercises? Yes, even Victorians had them. One method suggested counting the chimney strokes backwards while exhaling through the nose and murmuring the phrase "peaceful slumber cometh." You try it. It's not working, but it does make you feel like a Dickensian chimney sweep pretending to be a wizard. The bolster slips out from behind you and drops to the floor with a thump. You give up and lie flat. Sin and dreams be damned. You stare at the ceiling. Somewhere, across town, perhaps in a larger house with better mattresses, a nobleman is pacing his study. He's tried everything: warm brandy, Bible verses, even hiring someone to read to him slowly and monotonously. Still no sleep. Insomnia had no class loyalty. It came for the poor and the posh alike. One particularly strange Victorian cure: lying on a tiger skin rug in front of a fire and visualizing a perfectly still lake. It was thought to calm the body's vibrations. The lake didn't help. The tiger rug probably didn't either. Still wide awake, you run your fingers along the seams of your pillow and think about dreams. The Victorians were obsessed with them, not as gateways to the subconscious that came later, but as moral barometers. Good dreams implied virtue. Nightmares meant you had eaten too much meat, or worse. Harbored impure thoughts thought to prevent nightmares. Some advised wearing a silver cross to bed. Others placed garlic under the pillow or lined the bedposts with chalk to ward off spirits. You, not having garlic or chalk, settle for tucking your feet tighter into the blanket cocoon and hoping your dreams, if they come, stay friendly dot at the edge of sleep. Your mind starts drifting. You picture the bustling shops of London during the day, apothecaries selling all kinds of tinctures and tonics for the sleepless, Mrs. Ellsworth's midnight elixir, Dr. Hawthorne's herbal tonic, and of course, lettuce draft for lady nerves. These bottles promise peace. In a time of steam and stress, some worked, most didn't. A few, like the ones laced with opium or chloroform, really worked, but at a price. You roll onto your stomach, ignoring the creak and crack of the ancient mattress. The springs are poking through slightly. You wonder how many people have dreamed on this same bed or failed to. Maybe someone composed poetry here. Maybe someone sobbed quietly into this same horsehair stuffing in 1882. The wired to sleep because their beloved had taken the 4 a.m. train to Liverpool and never came back. You smile a little, then shift again. Still no sleep. Your eyes scan the shelves beside you. There's a small stack of books, etiquette guides, devotional texts, and one peculiar manual titled On the Discipline of the Night. You flip it open to a random page. It reads, "When repose eludes the noble mind, let stillness be its curtain and breath its companion." Next words, useless advice, but at least it's poetic. You close the book and place it back with exaggerated care, as if the slowness itself might lull you. There's something oddly peaceful about being awake when the rest of the world seems asleep or pretending to be outside the window. The night has deepened into that thick, velvet quiet that only comes after 3 a.m. It wraps around buildings, softens footsteps, and hushes the birds. Even the rats are slower now. You rest your head against the wooden headboard carved with ivy leaves and slightly uneven from Years of leaning and let your breath even out. Maybe you'll drift off, or maybe you'll just keep pretending. The chill creeps in again around the edges of the blanket. You shift slightly, pulling the covers higher, nestling into the softness in search of something that at least resembles comfort. The fire has all but vanished, now just a dull red eye blinking from the corner of the room. The foot warmer is long cooled, its embers expired like your hopes of sleep. You grope around beside you and retrieve the only thing more lumpy than the mattress, a small cloth pouch filled with dried barley. You place it on your stomach not because you think it'll help, but because it might. Welcome to the Victorian sleep mindset. No remedy is too obscure, too strange, or too vaguely edible. The truth is, your bed, the one you've been tossing in for hours, is part of the problem. Victorian beds, despite their grand drapes and intricately carved headboards, were often more symbolic than comfortable. A proper bed was a sign of class, a literal frame for one's status. But under all that grandeur lurked hard truth. Comfort was secondary to design, and often entirely absent. Your mattress, like most of the period, is stuffed with horsehair, straw, or flock, usually whatever was cheapest and easiest to find. Softness wasn't the goal, support was, and by support, they meant something like resistance training while you dream. You shift again and feel a sharp poke, probably a straw quill. It's like sleeping on a half-deflated scarecrow. Springs, a luxury if they existed at all. Early coil springs only began appearing in the mid-19th century, and even then, they were rare and noisy. If you had them, they squeaked every time you so much as blinked. Sleepers often preferred silence over support, and who could blame them? Historians still argue whether these beds actually contributed to insomnia, or simply reflected a wider belief that sleep wasn't meant to be indulgent. There was a puritanical streak to Victorian rest. Too much comfort, you were soft, too soft, and you'd surely become morally corrupt. And if that's not a bedtime story, what is? You sit up again and stare at the ceiling. You've now rotated through every position short of hanging upside down like a bat. The bed has groaned in protest at least 7 times. If it had a voice, it would be muttering, "Make up your mind already." A dull ache creeps up your shoulder blade. You reach behind to adjust the pillow, which might as well be a folded towel wrapped in a burlap sack. Victorians didn't believe in memory foam, they believed in memory of spine pain. Still, you admire their rituals. Every night, they went through the same slow ballet of preparation, removing corsets and waistcoats, brushing hair 100 strokes, of course while whispering prayers or bedtime rhymes, checking locks, snuffing candles, making sure the chamber pot was within reach. Every action choreographed to wind down a long, exhausting day. You glance toward the corner of the room where your boots sit neatly beside a brass candle holder. The boots still carry mud from earlier. Victorian streets weren't kind. They rarely dried fully, so the damp would just live in your soles. You consider how anyone ever managed to sleep at all in this world of smoke, soot, and late-night carriage traffic. But some did, and they swore by specific combinations. Goose feather pillows ranged at strategic angles. Thick linen sheets aired out every Tuesday, and for the really elite, beds with a heating pipe built right into the frame. Imagine that radiant warmth without even having to wrap your feet in flannel bricks. The lower classes, though, weren't so lucky. Whole families shared one bed. Sometimes, beds were rented for the night by the hour. 4-penny coffins, they were called not because of death, but because the accommodations resembled caskets in size and spirit. In workhouses and urban slums, people slept on rope beds, literally ropes strung across frames. In the morning, the ropes were unhooked, and the sleepers fell to the floor, That was considered efficient. You pull your blanket tighter. The wind shifts outside. A branch taps softly against the window pane. It's the kind of sound that could become a lullaby if your mind weren't so busy narrating historical footnotes to itself. You lie back again and focus on the ceiling. You count each crack, each sag in the plaster. You think about what the Victorians would have made of your methods, counting, breathing, picturing rolling hills and drifting clouds. They would have smiled politely, then handed you a boiled onion, poultice for your chest, and suggested singing a hymn until sleep took you. You try it. Not the poultice, the hymn. A soft hum under your breath. Something vaguely church-like. Though the words are long forgotten, it's oddly soothing. You wonder how many people in history have stared at ceilings just like this one. Wondered the same things. Felt the same dull tug behind the eyes as rest hovered just out of reach. It's funny. You think how the more things change, the more our sleep struggles stay the same. Your pillow crackles a little as you adjust it again. A tiny puff of straw dust escapes into the air. You pretend it's mist. The room grows quieter. Or maybe your brain does. Your breath slows. The blanket shifts with a faint, sleepy sigh. You're on your back again, arms folded in a loose kind of surrender, staring up at the ceiling as if it owes you something. And maybe it does at least a little peace. But peace doesn't come easily in the Victorian age. Especially not at night. And definitely not with the sleep theories people are handing around like lemon drops. You turn to your side, remembering the latest bit of advice you overheard in the apothecary this afternoon. Don't lie down flat. Sit slightly upright, or you'll drown in your own phlegm. Charming. That came from a woman in a blue feathered bonnet who smelled like lavender and old coins. You didn't argue. Victorian England had a complicated relationship with rest. Wow. Today we have melatonin gummies and white noise playlists. They had posture rolls, lettuce water, and if things got really desperate, opium, or, more commonly, its legal cousin, laudanum. You glance toward the dark amber bottle on the table beside your bed. It's heavy, etched with letters that spell out elixir of nightly repose. The cork squeaks when you remove it, and the smell is equal parts bitter and sleepy. You dip a spoon into the liquid and let a few drops slide down your tongue. The warmth spreads instantly, not physical warmth, but a kind of soft focus that dulls the edges of the room. You're still awake, but you care a little less about it, which really is half the battle. Laudanum was the Victorian miracle cure, equal parts alcohol and opium. It was prescribed for everything: colic, headaches, melancholia, feminine complaints, and yes, insomnia. A few drops in your tea or directly on the tongue, and the world seemed quieter, floatier, unbothered. Historians still debate how aware people were of its addictive nature. Some argue they knew exactly what they were doing, just didn't have better options. Others suggest they genuinely believed it was harmless, like a botanical helper with a mild kick. In either case, laudanum was as common on nightstands as candles in chamber pots. You sink deeper into the mattress. It's still lumpy, still vaguely hostile to human spines. But suddenly that matters less. In the quiet, you imagine the opium dens of East London, dimly lit, full of dreamers sprawled on divans, drifting between reality and whatever came next. A different kind of sleep altogether. Not peaceful, but unreachable. Of course, you're not chasing that kind of oblivion. You just want a few hours, enough to make the morning less sharp around the edges. The room flickers slightly as the last coal crumbles in the fireplace. Your foot warmer gave up long ago, and your toes are back to their chilly rebellion. You reach down and tuck the covers tighter. Somewhere, faintly, a cat yowls in the alleyway. Even the cats are restless. You remember reading about another Victorian sleep technique, Night walking. For those truly desperate, there were doctors who recommended getting out of bed and walking slowly, methodically, around the room for 10 minutes. Not to tire the body, no. It wasn't about physical exhaustion, but to rearrange the mental humors. So, you get up, the floorboards groan with each step as you pace in slow circles around the room. Past the wash basin, past the dresser, past the window, where a sliver of moonlight cuts across the floor like a blade of cold milk. You pause to look out. London, still cloaked in shadows, hums quietly, a carriage in the distance. Someone laughing, faint and far. The city never truly sleeps, just shifts its weight from side to side. You keep walking, one foot, then the other, trying to convince your brain that motion means progress, that you're doing something about your sleeplessness, not just surrendering to it. Somewhere across town, in a fancier house with thicker curtains, a gentleman is doing the same thing, perhaps in slippers made of velvet, perhaps in stocking, feet on Persian rugs. Insomnia is the great equalizer. You're both circling invisible enemies in the dark, hoping movement will unlock rest. You return to bed, breath a little deeper now, limbs looser. Maybe the laudanum's finally doing its job, or maybe the motion just gave your brain something to chew on besides dread back under the covers. You feel a yawn forming. It's real this time, not performative, not forced. Your jaw cracks slightly. As it opens, wide and long, the kind of yawn that has a beginning, middle, and end. You settle in again. This time, it feels different. Not comfortable, exactly, but less uncomfortable. The room tilts just slightly, not in a dizzying way, but like a boat adjusting to calm water. You exhale. The ceiling's still cracked, but you don't mind. The mattress still has a strange slope to one side, but that slope now feels like a gentle hill. Your eyes close, just for a moment, just to see what it's like, and for the first time in hours, your body doesn't resist. You wake again, but it's different this time, softer, as if your body floated to the surface instead of being jolted up by a phantom noise or another sharp corner of your own mind. The room is darker now, somehow quieter. Even the wind seems to have taken a nap, but still, you're not fully asleep, not quite. Something inside you still hums faintly like the last vibration of a bell rung hours ago. You shift, slightly, hearing the soft rustle of linen sheets and the faint creak of wood. The candle is burned out. The shadows no longer flicker, they just are, thick, unmoving. You blink slowly and catch the scent of something new, something pungent and floral all at once. You forgot you set out your sleep sachets earlier. Lavender, camphor, maybe even a slice of dried orange studded with cloves. Victorians believed deeply in the power of scent, not just as a luxury, but as a legitimate medical tool. Odor therapy, they called it long before aromatherapy became a buzzword. Lavender was the superstar, gentle, floral, clean, said to soothe nerves and chase away melancholic fogs. You inhale deeply, letting the scent glide through your nose and settle somewhere behind your eyes. Camphor was sharper, more medicinal. Used sparingly, it could clear sinuses and reinvigorate the nervous temperament. As one 1870s doctor put it, and the clove-studded orange, that was to ward off evil spirits and possibly mice. You try to focus on the lavender, ignore the faint tickle of camphor that hits the back of your throat. It's soothing in a sharp kind of way. You sink deeper into the blankets. It's strange, isn't it? How they lean on smells to do the work that sleep should have done. No screens, no sedatives, not counting the laudanum, just herbs, firelight, and hope. Lots of hope. Historians still argue whether these olfactory traditions were based on ancient herbal knowledge, or were simply Victorian superstition dressed up in velvet and brass. But the truth is, they worked often enough to survive, handed down from grandmothers to daughters, from servants to mistresses, scrawled into the margins of cookbooks and tucked between the pages of hymnals. You press your nose gently into the pillow. Faint traces of lavender cling to the fabric, and something else, possibly rose water. You can't be sure, but the scent lingers, like memory wrapped in warmth. Your thoughts begin to drift. That's how sleep sneaks in sideways, never when invited directly, always through some half-open door. You picture a Victorian bedroom, not yours, but one you visited once. High ceiling, heavy drapes, fireplace still flickering low, a porcelain pitcher of water on the washstand, a braided rug at the foot of the bed, someone's slippers turned neatly beside it. It's not your room, but you feel like you belong there. You imagine lying in that bed with proper sheets and maybe a feather mattress, the kind only a doctor or lawyer could afford. You wonder if they, too, lay awake thinking about the day's conversations, or whether the milkman overcharged them, or if they'd remembered to write Aunt Ethel. Insomnia, it seems, transcends. Thread count. Outside, the city is still. The clatter of hooves has stopped. The street lamps hiss quietly, but offer no glow through the heavy curtains. Somewhere, a clock chimes 4. The sound is distant, muffled, but you count it all the same. 4. The hour of foxes and forgotten dreams. Your breath slows. You focus on the ceiling again, this time, not to track cracks or spider webs, but to let your eyes lose focus. That old trick. If you stare long enough at one point in the dark, the rest of the world softens. And it does. You blink once, then again, slower, like an animal getting ready to hibernate. Somewhere in your half-conscious mind, you remember another remedy, roasted apple with nutmeg, said to relax the nerves and quiet the stomach. You think about apples roasting on a hearth, the sweetness curling up like steam. You wonder what it would taste like now, maybe soft, buttery, familiar. You're not hungry, just tired. Finally, another trick flickers into your mind, counting backwards in French. A woman in a bonnet once insisted this worked miracles. You remember Quater, toi, do, then forget what comes next. Doesn't matter. You roll onto your side. Somewhere between lavender, apples, and forgotten French, your thoughts begin to slide. Not race, not spin, just drift. The way a paper boat moves across a still pond, aimless, quiet. Your hand rests loosely against the quilt. Your other arm folds beneath the pillow. Face turned gently toward the window. No more rustling, no more pacing. Even the bed seems to have made peace with you. You hear nothing now but your own slow breath and, maybe, a hint of wind whispering under the door. Let it whisper. You're nearly there. You don't remember turning over, but somehow you're facing the wall now. The edge of the quilt is tucked just beneath your chin. You're still awake, but in that hazy, out-of-focus way where thoughts no longer behave. They stretch, twist, and fade like smoke, without ever completing themselves. It's not uncomfortable, just floaty and familiar. Your fingers twitch beneath the blanket, not from cold this time, but from a kind of gentle restlessness, the body's way of checking if it still exists. You press your palm into the mattress and feel its strange firmness, pushed back like memory foam made from old hay and obligation. A log shifts in the fireplace with a soft crackle. You'd forgotten there was anything left to burn. That small sound reminds you it's still night, still quiet, still yours. You recall another curious sleep habit from the era, biphasic sleep, a concept surprisingly common. In the 1800s, people didn't always sleep in one long stretch. Instead, it was common to fall asleep for a few hours, wake around midnight, stay awake for an hour or two, and then fall back into a second, deeper sleep until morning. You blink. That would explain, well, everything. Some called it first sleep and second sleep. During the gap, people read, prayed, even visited neighbors if the mood struck. Can you imagine knocking on someone's door at 2:30 a.m. just for a chat? In those quiet hours, it wasn't considered odd, it was natural. Historians still argue whether this was a biological rhythm disrupted by industrialization, or simply a cultural routine shaped by candlelight and quiet. Either way, your current wakefulness starts to feel less like failure and more like tradition. You let that comfort settle around you like another blanket. You're not sleepless, sure. Between sleeps, that's all. Your eyes scan the wall, where shadows pull gently. There's something soothing about it. No screens, no harsh lights, no buzzing from modern life. Just the natural silence of a world powered by fire and wind. You think of other nighttime routines from Victorian homes, the slow, mindful acts, dousing the gas lamp with a hiss, unhooking the lace curtains, tucking a note or dried flower into a diary before sleep. Each action gentle, unhurried, designed to pull the day closed like a curtain on a stage. You don't keep a diary, but you let your thoughts scroll anyway. You think of the woman from the marketplace earlier, her bonnet askew, arguing loudly about the price of eggs. You picture her now, fast asleep under a mountain of quilts, snoring like a slightly offended goose. You smile. You imagine the apothecary's shelves lined with labeled bottles, tonic of stillness, drops for the dreamless, night syrup for the restless mind, all handwritten, all full of hope. You sigh deeply, and the sound surprises you. Not dramatic, not forced, just honest. Another Victorian remedy nudges its way into your foggy thoughts. Bedtime reading. The idea was to lull the mind into a slower rhythm by reading dry, factual texts, not novels too exciting. No, they recommended books about farming cycles, mineralogy, or train schedules. Anything mind-numbingly precise. You think about reaching for the small almanac on your bedside table, but the idea of moving feels momentous. Besides, your brain is already halfway through an imaginary lecture on 19th century chimney construction. Outside, a breeze brushes past the shutters. Not a howling whine, just a sigh. The kind of sound that makes you want to burrow deeper into the mattress. And let time pass and notice your thoughts start to slip. You begin imagining scenes that don't make sense. Something about a parade of teacups, a goose wearing boots. You realize you're starting to dream before you're even fully asleep. This is progress. This is the edge. You stay very still, afraid that chasing the feeling will make it disappear. You breathe in slowly, through your nose, counting 1, 2, 3 and out again, the same. Your chest rises gently, settles even softer. Even the mattress seems to sigh with you. And then nothing. No thoughts, just a pause, and then, maybe, a flicker of sleep. Your eyes flutter open, not because you heard something, but because your body gently pulled you back. It's subtle. No panic, no confusion. Just a blink into darkness and the slow realization you were asleep, even if just for a few minutes. And that, oddly, feels like a victory. You lie still, careful not to chase it away. The blanket is tangled near your feet, the pillow slightly damp with the warmth of your cheek. You stretch one leg, then pull it back under the covers. The air outside the blanket is a bit too cold, a bit too real. You blink again, staring at the faint outline of the ceiling. The shadows haven't moved. They're still crouched in the corners like sleepy cats, watching but not bothering. Even the fire has gone completely out now. There's only the faintest orange glow in the ash pan, like the ember of a dream you can't quite recall. You're back in that familiar middle space, not fully awake, not fully dreamy, the in-between. And from here, everything seems slower this time. Instead of resisting, you let your mind wander. You think of the peculiar Victorian belief in bedroom color theory. Yes, they believed that the color of your walls could affect your sleep. Pale blues and gentle greens were preferred, said to soothe the nervous system. Deep reds or bright yellows, dangerous to stimulating. You wonder what they'd make of your bedroom, mismatched linens, chipped paint, no real palette at all. You imagine repainting the room in your mind a dusty blue, maybe like faded hydrangeas or twilight in a foggy field. You picture long drapes fluttering in a non-existent breeze, a single candle flickering by the window. The room glows in your imagination, warmer than it has any right to be. Victorians didn't just stop at wall color. They thought bed orientation mattered too. Your head should face north, aligning with the Earth's magnetic pull. South was thought to bring bad dreams, even madness. You shift slightly in bed and wonder, which way are you facing now? Historians still argue whether this was folklore dressed up as science, or a genuine attempt at understanding how environment shapes rest. Either way, it's oddly comforting to think the very direction you sleep might influence your dreams. You try turning over, just in case. The pillow is cooler on this side. Your cheek sinks into it more easily. You let your fingers rest against the edge of the mattress, where they dangle slightly in the void beyond. The room feels bigger when you lie like this, as if you become smaller, softer, almost a part of the furniture. Your breath evens out again. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then goes quiet. Maybe even it's finally asleep. You remember another piece of advice, this one from a small pamphlet you read by candlelight days ago. Let the body sink as the soul rises. It was spiritual. Of course, the Victorians saw sleep as a mini-death, a time when the soul drifted off to mysterious places and the body merely waited, a little eerie, maybe, but also poetic. You let your mind lift gently, just like that, drifting past your bed, past the ceiling, into a dreamscape shaped by fog and fading memories. You walk through a garden, your favorite one, from some other dream. You recognize the ivy on the stone walls, the soft hush of fountain water. There's no urgency, no noise, just stillness. The kind of peace that doesn't ask questions. A voice in the dream says something odd. The lettuce knows. You smile. That's how you know it's a dream. You begin to descend again, sinking gently into the warmth of the bed. The mattress creaks, not in protest this time, but like it's exhaling with you. Maybe even it's tired. The quilt is soft against your chin. The air smells faintly of dried lavender and something faintly metallic, like the iron bed frame itself has a scent. You close your eyes. You let the room disappear. You are no longer trying to sleep. You are no longer trying to think. You are just here, wrapped in night, carried by silenced eye, and slowly, sleep begins to pull you under again. There's no telling how much time has passed. It could be 10 minutes or an hour, but when you stir again, the room feels different, denser, quieter, like it's folded in on itself. You didn't fully wake, not exactly, just surfaced, barely, like a bubble rising from deep water. Your limbs are heavy now, pleasantly so. They don't want to move. Your eyes flutter open, but the darkness looks the same either way. There's a kind of peace in that, the world holding still, waiting. You take a slow breath in, and it feels right. No urgency, no racing thoughts, Just the steady rhythm of a body finally starting to let go. As your mind drifts again, it lands on one of the more peculiar Victorian obsessions, electrical sleep therapy. Yes, really. During the late 1800s, with electricity still new and exciting, some Victorian physicians believed mild electrical currents could cure insomnia. Special devices, soothing coils, slumber masks, and even electromagnetic blankets were marketed to gently stimulate the nerves into a restful state. Some were plugged into walls, others were powered by hand-cranked generators. Historians still argue whether any of these actually worked, or if it was just the novelty of being mildly electrocuted while horizontal. Probably the latter. You picture yourself in one of those machines, wires strung gently around your temples, the faint hum of current pulsing in time with your breath. It's ridiculous and yet somehow comforting. Even back then, people were willing to try anything just to sleep. It's reassuring in a way. You're part of a long lineage of tired people, chasing rest through the strangest possible methods. You shift under the covers, the mattress dips slightly beneath your hip, and you let gravity pull you deeper into it. The blanket has molded to your shape now. It knows you. It's been through every toss and turn. You close your eyes again and let your thoughts follow the rhythm of your breath. Inhale, count to 3. Exhale, count to 4. The numbers dissolve quickly, replaced by drifting thoughts that make less and less sense. There's a library in your mind, lit by candlelight. You wander through it barefoot, the sound of your steps swallowed by thick carpets and years of dust. Each book you pull from the shelves is a dream you never finished. Some are just a title and a cover. Some open into whole story, strange, gentle, half-dashed remembered. In one, you're sailing down a quiet river. In another, you're sitting at a table with Queen Victoria herself, both of you eating strawberries and not saying a word. She nods politely. You smile back. The dream has no plot, and that's okay. It's just there, like background music in a warm cafe. You let yourself float again. The room outside your dreamscape hasn't changed. The wind is softer now, no longer rattling the window. The bed is still. Your body is heavy, but not burdened. Just calm, settled. Your mouth is slightly open. A little drool pulls at the corner of your lip. You don't care. That's how you know it's working. And somewhere in the middle of your mind, a small part of you remembers this exact feeling from childhood, dozing on a train ride, or being carried from the car to bed, not fully awake, not fully asleep, but trusting the ride. That's what this is now, trusting the ride. You take another breath, let it out slowly. You let your thoughts dissolve, not push them away, just let them loosen. They float like leaves in a stream, barely touching the surface before spinning gently out of you. This is sleep, creeping in at the edges, not with a bang, not with a crash, but like fog rolling through a field. Soft, silent, certain. You don't need to try anymore. You're already there. You aren't sure if you drifted off again or just hovered in that soft limbo where time folds in on itself. The room feels even quieter now, as if the walls are listening with you. It's not silence exactly, but a hush, the kind that settles over snow-covered fields or deep libraries after dark. A hush that says, you're safe here. Your fingers twitch under the quilt. You wiggle your toes and feel the warm fabric hug back. For a moment, you wonder where your body ends and the bed begins. There's no clear border anymore. Just layers of warmth, weight, and stillness. You remember, vaguely, another odd Victorian belief, sleeping with one's head outdoors. It sounds absurd now, but some believed that fresh night air was vital for healthy sleep, so much so that specially designed beds were made with sliding sections you'd sleep inside, but your head would rest on a ledge outside the window, exposed to the cold night air. Some people even slept entirely outside, bundled under thick woolen blankets on porches or balconies. Historians still debate whether this was about air purity, spiritual openness, or just a misguided experiment in pneumonia. But the commitment is impressive. Imagine waking up with frost on your lashes and calling it a win. You smile faintly. It's silly, and yet you understand. The desperation for rest makes people creative. You're still curled on your side. The blanket is now perfectly molded to your body, like a cocoon you built without trying. There's a softness in your joints now, like your bones are floating slightly apart. It's not sleep yet, but it's the on-ramp. You breathe in deeply and are met with a faint scent your old friends, lavender and camphor, still hanging in the air like loyal companions. The smell reminds you of hands dipping into linen drawers, of old wool coats, of every grandmother you've ever known. You let your eyelids close again. This time, the dream comes quickly. You're in a Victorian greenhouse, huge, warm, filled with the scent of earth and orchids. There's glass everywhere, and sunlight filters through it like liquid gold. You're walking barefoot on damp flagstones, trailing your fingers along rows of potted ferns and lemon trees dot in the dream. No one speaks. They don't have to. The plants breathe for you. You move through the warm air like syrup, and for a moment, you think, this is what rest feels like. This is how it should always be. The dream shifts without your permission. Now you're in a bakery. The air smells of cinnamon and fresh bread. A kindly man with a flour-dusted apron hands you a warm roll and says nothing. You take a bite, and it tastes like Sunday morning. You drift again. The dreams don't hold shape for long anymore. They're softening, like butter melting into toast. You are deep in the folds of the night now, wrapped in everything that has brought you here. Lettuce water remedies, electrosleep theories, lavender sachets, and the sweet absurdity of a world that tried so hard to conquer insomnia with the strangest tools. You are part of that lineage now, a fellow traveler through sleepless centuries. But tonight, finally, you're not chasing sleep. You're letting it find you, and it does. It curls around your ankles, tugs at your spine, cradles your jaw. It hums a quiet lullaby in the back of your thoughts. It tells you, without speaking, you've done enough. You can rest now. And this time, you listen. You're not fully aware of waking this time. It's more like the tide briefly recedes and then flows gently back in. No sharp edges, no alertness, just a soft float to the surface. A blink, a stretch of fingers beneath the covers. A vague sense of being. There's no rush to move, no need to do. You're cradled by the quiet, wrapped in it like a second skin. Every sound, the faint creak of wood, the distant chirp of a night bird, the hush of your own breath feels a little slower now, like the whole world is exhaling with you. You lie there, eyes half-lidded, mind half open, and think once more about how hard the Victorians tried to make sleep make sense. Take, for example, the sleep diary movement. In the late 1800s, some doctors began encouraging patients to keep detailed logs of their sleep habits. Each night, they record the precise time they lay down, what they ate before bed, how long it took to drift off, how often they woke, and what dreams, if any, appeared. They believed this data could reveal patterns, triggers, maybe even cures. You imagine yourself in that era, dipping a pen into ink and scratching your sleepy thoughts into a cloth-bound journal. 11:37, attempted rest. 2 slices of brown bread, 1 apple. Felt heavy behind the eyes. Dreamed of Beatles conducting an orchestra. Mild terror. Woke briefly at 3:14 with urge to rearrange shoes. Historians still debate whether this practice actually improved sleep or merely fed the anxiety about it, because really who sleeps better when they know they'll have to report back in the morning, and yet something about it feels grounding, the idea of documenting your nights, not for judgment or science necessarily, but for companionship, like telling someone, yes, I was awake too. You stretch again beneath the quilt, not quite ready to give up your position. You shift your hips, feel the mattress shift back. It's no longer fighting you. You've become collaborators, now to weary travelers negotiating for peace. You think about your modern self, lying here in this hybrid world. Not quite Victorian, not quite now. Somewhere suspended between oil lamps and lead clocks, between hot water bottles and white noise machines die in this moment. None of that matters. You are just breath and fabric and the soft, slow pull of time. Your mind begins to paint again, gentle, strange images that don't quite fit together. You're walking down a cobbled street, arms full of feathers. You're sipping tea from a boot. You're playing chess with a pigeon who refuses to follow the rules. Each image fades as it arrives, like clouds over a moonlit pond. You're not resisting anymore. You've given up the illusion of control. You're no longer demanding sleep arrive on time. You've invited it in and left the door ajar, and now it's wandered in like a shy cat, circling once, then curling beside you. Your mouth opens. Slightly, your breath deepens. You sigh, and this time it's not frustration, it's relief. The quilt rustles softly as your chest rises and falls. You wonder, briefly, if sleep itself has a smell, if peace has a texture, if dreams hum at a frequency we only hear once we stop listening so hard. Maybe you don't need to know, because now, finally, you feel it settling over you. Sleep, not as a thief, not as a trickster, but as a guest. And tonight, you're letting it stay. This time, you don't wake so much as notice that you're still here. Your eyes are closed. Your breath is slow. The world hasn't shifted, but you've drifted somewhere deeper inside it, curled into a smaller version of yourself, quieter, weightless. You don't bother opening your eyes. There's nothing new out there, and that's perfect. Let it stay. Still, a warmth presses behind your ribs, not physical, but emotional, a kind of trust in the moment, a feeling that, perhaps, sleep no longer needs to be chased, it's simply becoming you. One breath at a time, your mind floats again, back to one of the gentler remedies from the Victorian era. The bedtime letter died in the late 19th century. It became fashionable to write quiet, reflective letters before bed, not to send, but as a form of emotional release. Some people called them moon notes. Little messages to themselves or to people they missed. Historians still wonder whether it was a coping mechanism or a way to shape dreams, a kind of written lullaby to self-soothe the mind. Before surrendering to unconsciousness, you imagine yourself dipping a quill in ink, writing by candlelight, your words slow and unhurried. Dear night, please take my worries gently and return only what I need. Let tomorrow come soft and far away. Yours, always, the restless body trying to sleep. You smile faintly in the dark. The idea seems silly and also entirely right. There's something comforting in the ritual. The notion that even if your thoughts feel tangled and twitchy, you can set them down with purpose. You can give them a bedtime, too. You wiggle one foot under the covers, just enough to feel it move, to remind yourself you're still here, but barely. Just a thread connecting you to the room. Your brain drifts again. Now you're walking through a shop in Victorian London. It's filled with nothing but beds, four-posters, cots, hammocks strung from the rafters. There are mattresses stuffed with wool, feathers, sea moss. Each bed has a little handwritten card beside it. guaranteed to lull the worried mind. Best for dreamers with heavy hearts, pairs well with moonlight and mild regret. You climb into one and it sings to you, not with sound, but sensation, a lullaby made of gravity. And then the dream shifts again. You're in a field. The grass is waist high, golden, gently moving. There's no wind, but still, it sways. You lie down, and the earth is warm beneath you. The sky is impossibly large. You close your eyes. Back in the real room, your limbs have gone fully slack now. No more adjusting, no more repositioning. You're tucked into yourself like a page folded carefully in half. You're aware only of the rise and fall of your chest. The stretch between breaths growing longer, slower. There's a hum, low and steady, not a sound, but a feeling, like the body's purr when it knows it's finally allowed to rest. No more clocks ticking, no more internal to-do lists, no more searching the dark for solutions that don't live their dot tonight. Nothing is broken, nothing needs fixing. The past is folded, the future tucked away, and here, in this small soft moment, you are finally allowed to just be. The quiet feels thicker now, almost touchable. You lie there, suspended in it, as if the world has been gently wrapped in cotton. Your thoughts no longer arrive in sentences or stories. They come as impressions, the feel of warm wool, the memory of distant thunder, the echo of your mother's. Lullabies, though you're not even sure she ever sang them. You've stopped trying to tell time. That part of your mind is off duty. You breathe in, long and low, and something in your chest relaxes just a little more. There's nowhere else to be. One last Victorian remedy floats into your drifting thoughts, weighted tranquility, a curious practice that involved placing small sandbags or lead-filled quilts on the chest, or legs to encourage calmness. The idea was that pressure could soothe the nervous system like a parent's gentle hand over a child's back. Sound familiar? Historians still argue whether this was rooted in actual therapy or just desperate comfort, but the result, intentional or not, was the same: stillness, and the stillness worked. Your blanket is no sandbag, but it presses just enough to remind you you're held. You don't need to go anywhere. The world can turn without you for a little while. Your thoughts blur again. You're in a carriage, riding through fog. The driver hums an old folk tune. You don't ask where you're going. You don't need to. You trust the rhythm of the wheels on the cobblestones, the sway of the ride. The road is long, but the motion is perfect. The dream fades. You're back in bed. Then you're a child again, watching your breath fog the window pane. Outside, a garden of frost glistens under moonlight. You trace shapes on the cold glass stars, spirals. Nonsense. The kind of drawing that only matters because you made it, and then watched it disappear. Then you're somewhere else. A long hallway, lined with ticking clocks, but all of them are silent. You don't panic. You don't think. You float. The thoughts that used to chase you have stopped running. They've curled up somewhere behind your eyes and fallen asleep without permission. The room hums its same quiet lullaby. You are warm. You are safe. You are allowed. There's a shift in your breathing, barely noticeable unless you're listening closely. It's deeper, slower, a rhythm older than language. You remember the first time you fell asleep in someone's arms. Not the person, not even the moment, just the feeling. That sense of being carried even while standing still. That's what this is. That you are being carried. Sleep is no longer a goal. It's a place, and you're in it now, knee deep, shoulder deep, floating just beneath the surface like a pearl in warm water. The last flicker of thought tiptoes across your mind. Maybe I'll remember this. Then, even that fades. The hush deepens, and so do you. You don't feel yourself drift further, you simply are further now. The kind of deep where thoughts no longer rise, and even your breath feels borrowed from the earth itself. A slow inhale, soft and full, a slower exhale, like mist. Fading from glass eyes, your limbs are distant, not numb, just no longer needing you. They've gone ahead without asking, relaxed and folded into the mattress like they belong there. Your fingers, somewhere near your stomach, have forgotten tension. Your shoulders so often hunched in. Daylight are completely loose. The weight of your day poured out into the quiet dot in this place. Even dreams begin to dream of you dot and still. Something in your mind drifts gently back to the Victorians. Always the Victorians. Those well-meaning, candlelit inventors of rituals and remedies for rest. Tonight, you recall their curious experiments with sound therapy in an era before Spotify playlists or white noise machines. Sleep seekers turned to nature and invention. The drip of a leaky faucet, the rustle of newspapers, even mechanical ticking devices engineered to simulate ocean waves. There was a popular belief that certain sounds, especially repetitive ones, could lull the mind into sleep through sheer boredom. One physician swore by the rhythmic clicking of knitting needles. Another claimed that the creak of an old rocking chair was the heartbeat of night itself. There was even a slumber pipe, which released soft airflow through reeds to create a gentle humming. Historians still argue whether these worked toward if people simply tricked themselves into peace. But as you lie here, listening to the subtle, steady silence around you, you understand that it's not the sound itself, it's the pattern, the reliability, the promise that nothing is about to happen. That's what this entire story has become. Not a roller coaster, not a revelation, but a pattern, a steady, meandering voice walking you through foggy landscapes of imagined lives and curious details. You haven't noticed when the story lost its thread, because by now, you're the one spinning it. The facts blur with fiction, the dreams mingle with history, the fire in the hearth long since gone cold, and yet, you're warm, you're still, your mind drifts again. Now you're at sea, on a ship made entirely of beds, no sails, just rows of blankets fluttering. The crew wears pajamas, the captain is a cat. You steer by following the direction of your own heartbeat. Then, you're walking barefoot in a bookstore where every spine glows faintly. Each title is written in your own handwriting. None of them make sense. All of them are familiar. Another shift. You're in a field, under a tree older than memory. The wind rustles its branches just enough to remind you you're still here. But even that thought doesn't last. You breathe in, you breathe out. The silence doesn't need to be broken. Your eyes, even behind their closed lids, are still. Sleep is not coming. It's arrived. It's everywhere now, folded into your breath, your pulse, the soft corner of your mouth where a smile once lived. You are deeper than before, deeper than stories, deeper than names. And there's still further to go. This is where you barely exist, and that's exactly what you needed. You are no longer holding yourself up with thoughts. There are no edges left, just a slow dissolve. Even the voice that's been walking with you all night seems farther away now, like it's speaking through water, or from another room in a dream you've already forgotten. But still, a whisper remains, not to wake you but to carry you the last few steps. You think, distantly, of one final peculiar sleep method, the sleep chair. Victorians, in their relentless quest to outwit restlessness, believed some people slept better upright, so they designed chairs padded, high-backed, and adjustable to support sleep without the need to lie flat. Some even had footrests, blanket slots, and hidden compartments for smelling salts or warm bricks that cleaned the position, aided digestion, soothed nervous tension, and prevented the collapse of delicate lungs. Perhaps it did, or perhaps it was just one more beautiful attempt to make peace with the unpredictable art of falling asleep. Historians still argue whether these chairs helped or hindered, but they endure in dusty museums and yellow journals, testaments to a time when even furniture tried to care for you. You smile softly, even now, because you know the truth. It's not about the chair, the lettuce, the linens, or the lullabies. It's about the effort, the intention. The act of saying, I deserve rest. I am allowed to let go. And here you are, hundreds of years later, saying the same thing without words, but with your whole, heavy, beautiful body. You shift once more, not out of need, but out of habit. The mattress accepts you, the blanket, warm and worn, molds around your frame. Your breath is low and deep, not forced, not guided, just being. A flicker of consciousness stirs one last thread. You wonder what time it is. You wonder what part of the script you're in. You wonder if it even matters. It doesn't. The story has unspooled around you like a ribbon falling slowly through water. There's nothing left to fix. No loose ends. No clever conclusion. Just this moment, this softness. This stillness that belongs to no century, only to you. And now, it's time. Time to fall all the way through. Time to let even the voice disappear. Time to let night hold you completely. So now, as your breath slips into that long, perfect rhythm, as your thoughts become fewer, farther apart, then gently fade altogether, just know that you've done enough tonight. You've wandered through the gentle oddities of another time, not to learn, not to memorize, but to settle body and mind in something slower, something softer. The fire has gone out, the stories are folded away, and the world, for now, asks nothing of you. Not a single thing. No tasks to complete, no problems to solve. Not here. Not now. All you need to do is breathe and let yourself drift into the quiet. Into the deep. Into the place where sleep waits, not with demands, but with open arms. You're already almost there. So let go. Just a little more. Feel your body sink. Feel your thoughts scatter like feathers. And if they return, that's okay. The voice will still be here. The night will still be here. And so will rest. Always. Sweet dreams.